Hello, guys. It's Anthony Bandiero here bringing a roadside chat. The question comes from an officer in Nevada, and the officer is basically saying, hey, look, if we ask a passenger to come out of the vehicle, can we also order them to keep their stuff in the vehicle so that we can do a free air sniff? So the officer said, I recently attended one of your classes in Reno, had questions about passengers in a traffic stop. When doing a proactive traffic stop where without extending the stop, we know that we cannot extend a traffic stop to run a canine unless we have what? Either consent or reasonable suspicion. I request the passengers out of the vehicle prior to the canine arriving on scene. So this is going to be a classic free air sniff type of situation. That is covered by a Supreme Court case called Illinois versus Caballes, where while one officer is writing a ticket, the other officer is running his canine around the car, and as long as it doesn't extend the stop, we're good because that's not a search under the Fourth Amendment. However, a little caveat, some states do consider this an intrusion and require reasonable suspicion. Places like New Mexico, Washington, Pennsylvania, and others. So, not in Nevada though, right? So far so good. Now, look, the passenger is adamant. The passenger's like, I'll get out of the car, but I'm taking my purse. I'm taking my backpack. Can we order them to keep the bag in the car? Okay. I've always had passengers, well, most passengers are going to leave the stuff in there, but at the end of the day, what's the goal here? The officer's goal is to, get that bag. If the dog alerts, we want to get that bag under the motor vehicle exception. And it's a good question because if you let the bag out of the car and then the dog alerts, you may not, strictly speaking, have a motor vehicle exception for that bag because at the time of the probable cause, the bag was not in the car. It was not a container in the vehicle. So strictly speaking, it's a very good argument that the motor vehicle exception doesn't apply to that bag at this point. Okay, so bad news and good news, I guess. The bad news, I cannot find a case that is directly on point. The good news is, I guess, because I know cops are, I've done it. I know cops are ordering people to leave the bags in the car for officer safety reasons. So I guess the good news is that if I haven't seen a case on it, I cannot find a case. I'm not saying that a case doesn't exist. It probably does. I just cannot find it. But it also means there's probably not a lot of cases out there, or I would have found it. But the point is that if this was such a litigious issue, if this was such a, no, you can't do it, I probably would have found something by now. And the fact that I cannot leads me to believe that lawyers are not going after this, right? Or if they are, they're losing, and it's not going up to a court of appeals for whatever reason. So here's my kind of advice. First of all, I do think that this, ordering people to leave their containers in the car requires some justification. I really do. I mean, I don't think we should go to court and say, Your Honor, I can order them out under Pennsylvania versus Mimms and Maryland versus Wilson. I can order all the occupants out, and I can also order them to keep their stuff in. I mean, I know that Pennsylvania versus Mimms stated that we can order people out of the car, because traffic stops are inherently dangerous. We need command over the situation. It's also what they would call a de minimis intrusion. In other words, they've already been detained. They're already stopped for a traffic violation. What's the big deal of actually just telling them, hey, get on your 2 feet and walk out of the car, right? In other words, what the court said was that was not really that intrusive. The intrusion is already the main intrusion, which is the detention, based because you're in the car for a traffic stop. The main intrusion has already been done. So having them stand on their 2 feet versus sit on their butt doesn't seem that much of more of intrusion. And I think there is some logic there for the bag, right? I mean, what is the big deal constitutionally of just saying, hey, passenger, get out, and also don't take any stuff with you? So we may be able to call this de minimis. I think a better argument, though, if I was a prosecutor, is fine, de minimis is a backup plan, but why don't we just talk about general officer safety, right? We know we can pull out plenty of cases that talk about the inherent dangerousness of making a traffic stop on a motor vehicle because they know who we are. We don't really know who they are. There's, they can do an ambush on us when we are approaching a vehicle and so forth. So we know that courts uphold general officer safety, control of the vehicle and so forth. So I would just say, look, we know we can do a free air sniff under Caballes. That's not going to be an issue in most states. And we know we can pull the passenger out. Again, that has already been settled law. So just having them keep that container in the vehicle so they don't have ready access to it while they are out of the vehicle, which again is allowed for officer safety, just makes sense. So I think that at this point, what I would suggest is if you can just articulate an officer safety reason, then I think you're going to be able to do it. However, if you just go to court with a smug attitude of, hey, look, I can do whatever I want, and why you double checking my work, Your Honor. I think that's opening the door for a court out there to be like, you know what, we want justification in 2024 and beyond, right? So have a reason. Talk about the officer safety issues. Talk about, we're not going to be able to search that purse or backpack because we may not have particular reasons to actually search it. So keeping it out of their hands is the next best thing. That's my advice for you at this point. If you have any other cases on this, if you have dealt with this issue, if you had a prosecutor say yay or nay on this issue, I would love to hear your comments below. If you have any other questions for me, for I can help you get it right every single time, go to bluetogold.com and submit your question there. Until next time, my friends, you stay safe.